Hello and welcome to the Barney Festival of Music 2020. In this video, you'll be able to watch a workshop that was run for our finalists of the Young Musician of the Year competition. Now that final will take place on Wednesday, the 15th of July at 6 p.m. and will be adjudicated by Owain Park, so do tune into that. But prior to that, pupils had submitted videos to enter the competition, and our finalists were lucky enough to have a sort of good 45-minute workshop with Jason Mathias, who's the Director of Music at Brighton College. So what you're about to see is that workshop all the way through. We hope you enjoy.
Folks. So firstly, can I just thank Mr. Jason Mathias, who was a great colleague of mine while I was down in Brighton, a good friend as well, and he's epic. So I'm so glad that he's able to come along today and give you some words of wisdom. Jason's currently Director of Music at Brighton College, where I was in the southeast. Just to give you a bit of background on him, he studied at the Trinity College of Music in London, so one of the major conservatoires in this country, where he sort of got to grips with what's called tripling in the woodwind trade. So he learned sax, clarinet and flute. After that, he trained for Her Majesty's Household Division and joined the Scots Guards. Do correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mr. Mathias. So he's Scots Guards lead saxophonist in the Scots Guards, so often playing for the Queen, Trooping with the Colour. He's got this amazing story. We probably won't have time to hear it today, but he was there for the Hong Kong handover in 1997, which was just a great, amazing story. So he was playing for that. It means he's played at places like Windsor Castle, Balmoral, St Paul's Cathedral, Westminster Abbey. But he's great specialist in jazz. So he's played at Ronnie Scott's. He's done loads of West End stuff, including playing for shows in the West End like Cats, Starlight Express, Blues Brothers, Billy Elliot, all those. So he's a big player, absolutely epic on the sax. So it's awesome to have you here, Jason. Thank you so much. So what I've asked Mr. Mathias to do is just to give you guys a bit of some ideas today to do with your performing. Now, obviously, this Young Musician of the Year is unlike anyone that may have happened at Barney in the past, in that it's all happening with you submitting videos. Usually for this kind of thing, we'd be talking about how you make your presence known in the room and all this kind of stuff to do with interacting with the audience. And I still think we might get onto some of that today, just so we can think post-lockdown and sort of performing etiquette for that. But Jason will talk about bits to do with general performing etiquette, bits that may affect you to do with recordings and stuff like that. And he might bring sort of a few of you in to try different ideas, but it's completely up to him. I might sort of chip in with some questions if you're all being very quiet. But if you have questions, do use the sort of raise hand function, or raise your hand, or pop something in the comments, or whatever. But basically, we've got him for 35, 40 minutes. Make the most of him. All right. So over to you, Mr. Mathias. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Dawson. What an introduction. Very nice to see you again. Yeah, so Richard's a very close friend, actually, and we've been on tour together whilst he was at Brighton College as well. So I know you're very lucky to have him at Barney Castle. He's missed here at Brighton desperately. So anyway, we're going to move on because I'll start crying. But anyway, so first of all, I have listened to a lot of you playing and performing already, because Mr. Dawson kindly sent, I think it was your round audition piece. Was that right, Mr. Dawson? That's the auditions for the rounds. So I've listened to all of them actually and thoroughly enjoyed them. So thank you very much. There's definitely things I think we could all improve on in real basic things. You know, I'm not even talking about your musicianship or how you're playing your pieces or any of that stuff. It's mainly how you present yourself, which is weird, isn't it? Trying to present yourself in front of a camera, because it's unknown. You're not actually playing to anyone, you're playing to a screen, and it's horrible. You know, even doing this is not natural. You know, doing this over a screen, it's not nice, but obviously there's no other way of doing it. But anyway, how can we get the recordings, or how do you come across a lot better and personable through your camera or your phone camera? How do we do that? So first of all, the first thing I would say, and it's a real basic thing, and I've been saying this to a lot of the pupils at my school when we're doing anything like this, recording entries for the Young Musician of the Year, it's really important. The simple one, right, is the camera. Now, everyone, I think nearly all of you, in fact, I think it was all of you, sent in a portrait, you know, of your phone. So you're doing it that way. It was all that way. Now the problem is, as soon as you put that on YouTube, you get black screens either side of the image. If you do landscape, that it takes up the whole picture. And honestly, straight away, that's a really good thing to do. It's probably really obvious, but none of you did it, okay? Really important. Now, I was looking through all these performances. Some people have done really, really well. And I'm going to pick out Evie just because you were the first one I saw on the video. And Evie, I think you got a lot of this stuff really good, actually. You presented really well. Simple things. You said who you were and what you were going to play. All right. Really, really good. It sounds simple and obvious, but Evie, you were very good at this and you came across very well. So I got a bit of your personality just by you speaking. Do you know what I mean? And that's what you're trying to get across through the camera. There's no audience there. How do we know what you're like? Get across your personality, and you do that simply by introducing yourself, and you did it in a really warm way, smiley, and it just came across. You did it with clarity, and it came across so well. Straight away I warmed to that performance, you know, before you even started playing. So that is a really good thing. So sorry to pick you out, but it was just a very good opening, do you know what I mean, before you even played. Right, so that's the simple thing, right? Camera, landscape. Think about your surroundings. Think about your surroundings. So some of you are in these weird places. Yeah, you put yourself in weird places. I think someone was in a garage, quite obviously, and like stuff, you know, clearly you're in a bedroom or something. I think you can make that look a lot better. Look what I've done here in my room. Look, I've got a little display of saxophones, got a nice fireplace. Mr. Dawson's laughing because I do this when I hosted our Young Musician of the Year. I made sure I was in a nice room, grand piano, light, you know, make it look lovely, make it look like we want to see what's going on. This is a performance. Ultimately, you are giving a performance, even though you're holding up your phone. You've got to give a performance. Okay, so surroundings, backdrop. What I also do is sound check, okay? Have a little sneaky record first on your phone or however you're doing it. If you've got a microphone, that's even better. I have one here. This is brilliant. I'm not actually using it at the moment, but if I was playing an instrument, this Yeti is called. Very, very good, very good. Anyway, if you haven't got one of those, it's not the end of the world. But you can still do a sound check. Have a couple and play a few notes, or have a little sing through first. You know, if we're getting any sort of feedback or vibration, you know, we suddenly get that crackle. Just move it around a bit, and you know, experiment with the sound. Really important. Simple things. Okay, so camera, landscape, backdrop, surrounding, sound check. What to wear? What are you going to wear? Okay, so you've got to treat this as a performance. So you know. Some of you did. Some of you dressed up. Someone had their school uniform on. I think it was Benito. Did you have your school uniform on? Very smart, very, very good. Some of you wore like concert dress, all black. But then others of you not all doing that. But some of you getting that right, okay? It's getting the whole thing right, the whole package. What to wear, concert dress, school uniform, brilliant, okay? Look professional. Another real interesting point, actually, this next point. Where do you position your music stand? Okay, do you put it right in front of the camera so all we can see is your music stand? Okay, no, do you do that? Maybe not. Do you put it to the side? Evie, you had it to the side, that was good. Benito, I think you had your stand right in the middle there. Benito, I don't think you even needed the music, did you?
I think so. I think I need it for some parts, but not all of it.
Yeah, you didn't really need it. I don't think you needed that music stand. I think you could have positioned that stand, if only for a few little bits. Put it over there, so you've got it there for a security. But we didn't need to see that music stand. I would have much rather seen your hands and your mallets playing. Do you know what I mean? Because that would be much better. So simple things like that. Also, a couple other people who are really stuck into the music stand. All right, let's not get stuck behind that music stand. When you're doing a performance, it's really interesting, and Mr. Dawson will tell you this, it's really good to position that stand slightly to one side, or, you know, it's not the main thing. You're the main thing, the stand or the music's sort of secondary, but you, as long as you can still use a music stand, obviously, but just get it out because it's often classed or seen as a barrier, all right, which that's not what we want. We don't want that barrier. Okay, so do you need that music stand? Yeah. If you do, where are you going to put it? So there are a couple of little questions there for you. The other thing is posture. Looking around, a lot of you got the posture right. I thought there were some very good postures, but definitely something to think about, because that also comes across in your performance. All right. So all those points. Now you're probably thinking, oh yeah, I've heard all this before. Mr. Dawson's told me all this before. But really take it on board for the final. Take it on board, because who's judging the final?
So the final has been judged by Owain Park, who is award-winning composer, director of the Gesualdo Six. Big name.
Big name. So look, know your audience. Know your audience. What's he going to be looking for? Professionalism. Yeah, he wants to see that performance. He wants to see you in concert dress, really lovely surroundings, performing well, music stands slightly to the side, all those things. Yeah, he's looking for professionalism. Know your audience. Okay, super know that. Super know your audience. Really important. Okay, so now we've done all that. How do you present yourself now? So you're looking great, you're in a great room, it's looking wonderful. How do you present yourself? Okay, I would definitely like you to, I would like to see you all, I'm not going to ask you to do this now, sorry, but what is really good is when you introduce yourself and the piece you're playing. Really important, okay? And it helps you come across as a warm person, or it gives you it gets your personality across before you try playing your instrument, yeah? So come across, so think about, do you do presentation skills at school?
Sort of more when they get to the sixth form. So not
okay. So presentation skills. So this is what really we're talking about, yeah? Presentation skills, personality, and the ability to get across to the audience your side. All right. So you do that with clarity, articulate well, volume, confidence, enthusiasm. Evie had enthusiasm when she introduced her piece. That was brilliant. And warmth and personality. Get those things across. Okay. Really, really important. A lot of you did do that. Some of you didn't. Okay, doesn't matter. But something to think about. Okay. Now there are a couple of people who didn't actually film their performances. I don't know why that was, but it might be good to, video your performance rather than just the audio. Mr. Dawson, is that all right? They're all out of video, are they? I don't know. I mean, I don't know about.
Yeah, I think it was similar. It was similar to the to Your Young Musician. It was basically, if you can have a video, that's great. If you're really not feeling comfortable being videoed and you just want to send over audio, that's fine. Some people I know are really having troubles with their internet, so sending over an audio file which isn't as big was easier than a video. But
yeah, fair enough, good. But even on the audio, you can still introduce your piece and yourself. I think Lois, for you, you were singing Dream the Dream, weren't you, from Les Mis? Yeah. So obviously this is musical theatre, isn't it? So I mean, you sung it beautifully, absolutely beautiful, and a really, really hard song to sing, known as one of the hardest songs to sing because of the range of it, not just the pitch range, but the dynamic range is massive, and it has all that stuff at the beginning, doesn't it? The recitative, yeah. So that, when you're not acting that as well, it's kind of how do you do that? So it's kind of like it's a recitative. So it can be, you did it brilliantly, but if you can act it out as well, because musical theatre, that's all part of it before then you go into the song, because once you got into the song, it's brilliant. And what was really good about when you were singing that is you did build, you built this whole piece, the performance and your dynamic, because in that piece, there's lots of climax points, aren't there? There's about 3 different climax points before we come back down to this sort of head voice at the end. But you did that really well, but it's just a recitative, easy for me to say, just could have been I suppose acting out a bit more dramatic. But that's, I mean, it's only because you didn't have your camera on. I think that's the only thing. It's quite a hard song to do, musical theatre, without being seen. But apart from that, really, really lovely. Right, okay, so that was the other point I was going to get onto, really, is know your piece of music. What are you singing? What are you playing? Did you all do some research into the piece that you were doing? Okay, let me ask some questions then. Let me ask some questions, because I've researched all your pieces, okay? So I'm just going to start. I'm just going to do a couple of quick questions, all right? So the first one, I'm going to do it in order of the videos. This is no particular order, but so Evie, I'm going to ask you quickly first, okay? So your piece, yeah? You played the first one, Pan, didn't you? So tell me, who was Pan?
He was a faun who played some pipes, and I think they're called syrinx, the instrument that he's playing. And he essentially was a character from Greek mythology, as all 6 of the people are in Metamorphoses.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely brilliantly. Right, yeah. I'm looking at the message there. Good. Okay, Evie, actually, yeah, spot on. And yeah, and also I think the ancient Greeks also considered Pan to be the god of theatrical criticism. Yeah, and the word panic ultimately derives from the god's name. Okay, so you could think in your piece, yeah, panic. And it will help you to interpret your piece even more so. Do you know what I mean? So you really get to know your piece. What's the background of the piece? You know, we all know who Britain was. Do we know the 6 metamorphoses of it? Okay, I didn't. I've looked into it. I now do. Okay, so I would have definitely researched that. Have you also listened to anybody else play your piece? That goes for everyone. Listen to other people playing your piece. Yeah, you don't have to play it the same as them. That's just someone's interpretation, other interpretation of the piece. But it's good to get some background and some other understanding of how other people interpret their pieces. Okay, so brilliant, Evie. Very, very good. Very, very good. Good. Right, so I'm looking at the messages. Right, Ben. Is Ben here? Yeah.
Yeah.
Internet issues. Right, okay, Ben. So obviously, one of my main instruments is saxophone, so I'm all over the saxophones. Okay, so sorry about that. And I didn't have to research any of this because I know it all already. But Round Midnight, one of my most favorite jazz ballad standards. All right. So Ben, where are you?
I'm here.
Good, good, good. Who did you listen to before playing this piece?
I didn't really listen to anyone.
No. But who wrote your piece?
Thelonious Monk.
Thelonious Monk. All right, Thelonious Monk. Do you know anything about Thelonious?
He's 1944 jazz composer, but that's about it.
Yeah, but also one of the most amazing jazz pianists ever, and actually more famous in 1966 for actually playing Round Midnight and his actual album Round Midnight. But his harmonies, you need to check this guy out, because his harmonies and his voicings, his piano voicings are absolutely amazing. Okay, but so he's an amazing jazz pianist and absolutely influential for so many different jazz artists of today and musicians, you know, full stop, not just jazzers. But also listen to other sax players playing this. You've got to listen to other sax players. I'll give you one to listen to now. Yeah, write this guy's name down. Gerald Albright. Now, reason I've given his name, because he's not one of the old legends. He's a modern alto sax player. Listen to him playing this as well. So Google that, Gerald Albright playing live Round Midnight. Have a listen to that. Awesome. Because you don't get many alto players playing Round Midnight. You don't get many. It was mainly done on tenor. Okay, the other thing with Round Midnight, it was a film in 1983, all based on a very famous saxophonist, Dexter Gordon. So, you know, do your research, because the jazz harmony in Round Midnight is absolutely lush, yeah. Do you improvise at all?
No, not in this piece.
No. Okay, so it's worth having a little look at the chord progression as well, and you sort of look at the chords that are involved in this. You can see that online as well. Or have you got a real book at all? You got a real book?
Yeah, but the chords aren't written down on it.
Really? Okay, it might be worth having a look at the chords, because they're all extended chords. All, you know, so many extensions, loads of flat 5s, flat 9s. Beautiful. Okay, beautiful to play on. But do your research, absolutely, because actually you played this beautifully, Ben. Absolutely beautiful, really lovely tone. You had a nice tone. You could warm that tone up a bit more as well, a little bit more controlled vibrato. Yeah, a nice slow vibrato on that will warm up the sound beautifully. But your tone is really lovely and you play it actually really well. Okay, so generally things like that research. All right, that's the same for everyone, really. Okay, Lois, I dreamed a dream. Have you seen Les Mis? Obvious question. She's disappeared. Is she there? Lois, maybe she's not there.
Dropped off. She sometimes has internet issues.
Sometimes drops off. Yeah.
Oh, wait. She's there. She's there.
Yeah, I think she's there. I think she's there. So generally, you're saying it's really good. I think I talked about this before with the recitative business at the beginning, and it's really hard when you're not there to able to act it out. I mean, I was wondering, do you do drama? Do you do musical theatre as well as singing? Yeah, brilliant. So if you may possibly put your camera on whilst recording this, I think it would give a completely different interpretation to your performance. It really will, because as the song started, it became a song. It was absolutely fine and brilliant, but it's all the stuff at the beginning where you do have to act quite a bit, I think, for that to come across. Mr. Dawson, would you agree with that? I mean, I'm not a singer, but I'm just feeling as a whole performance, it would be good to see the whole performance, because even everyone else, you're still performing, and that's why it's great that we've got cameras, because even when you're playing a piece, no matter what it is, you are performing. But musical theatre is sort of that little extra bit, isn't it? So I would say do that. Right, okay, Benito. So I talked a little bit about your xylophone. Mainly your stand positioning for me I found a little bit frustrating, because what you were doing I thought was brilliant. I really wanted to see the action of the hands and the mallets on the wood, because actually you played that really well. Look, what I was going to say about your instrument is obviously very physical. It's very physical, isn't it? It's a physical thing. So I think that's the other thing. I think I would like to see maybe, look, I'm not a percussionist, but loosen up a little bit. It just felt a little bit rigid to me some points. Yeah. And quite clearly, you knew that piece. You can play that piece. So I would say relax a little bit and perform it, get your performance across to the listener and enjoy it more. Get rid of that stand. I don't think you need the music, by the way. I would say just get rid of it entirely. And then, you can really get into that performance and think about your dynamics. In your piece, you've got loads of movement there for natural dynamic. The dynamics might not be written in your part there, but every time, you're sort of doing those ascending scales, it's a natural dynamic. It's natural to get louder, really, unless it says otherwise, of course. But generally, the natural dynamic is a huge thing. A dynamic doesn't always have to be written in the part to actually do it. And that's the same for everyone, especially the jazzers as well. And I think around midnight, you wouldn't have had it probably, well, if you did have any dynamics written, they wouldn't have been originally. But generally, natural dynamic, natural shape of your piece. Think of the shape of the whole piece. And that goes for everybody, the shape of a piece. Yeah. Okay, so so Tom saxophone as well. Good. Hi, Tom. So one note samba. Who wrote this?
Antonio Carlos Jobim.
Jobim, yes. And what was he the king of writing?
Sambas.
Yeah, one of Mr. Dawson's favorite kind of music, samba. He loves it. Okay, so what do we? Here's one then. Here's one, Tom. Who is the best known tenor saxophonist for samba playing?
No idea.
Oh dear. Right. Okay, I'm going to tell you. Stan Getz. Yeah, Stan Getz.
Yeah.
Really famous. So Mr. Dawson's favorite piece is a piece called Brazil, and he can sing and play that. But Stan Getz was features on that as well. But all the Carlos Jobim sambas. Okay, so let's talk about samba. What is samba?
Isn't it for like a dance?
Yeah, quite strict. It's actually quite a strict dance. So you're, one note samba, essentially how many notes you play at the beginning?
One.
Exactly. Okay, so you've got to make that one note sound very interesting. and very rhythmical. So that you know, it's one note. You've got to make it sound interesting. And then the bit in the middle, that middle eight, you've got this lovely legato phrase. Beautiful, isn't it? Massive contrast there. Massive contrast. So you can really make that nice, clear contrast. That middle eight as well, we talked about natural dynamic. As the phrase goes up, get louder and then come away, get louder and come away. It makes it really interesting when you do that. That doesn't have that arrangement you've got doesn't have improv in it either, does it?
No.
No. Okay, so it's a strict written out solo, it sounded like. So again, make it sound I don't know, try to make it, I mean, we played it wonderfully. By the way, very nice tone again, both the sax players, really lovely sounds, really, really lovely. But you can make that sort of solo bit, which is not improvised, it's written out, make it even more interesting, okay? How are you going to do that? Let's have a couple of ideas from somebody else. How is Tom going to make his solo section, which isn't a solo section, even more exciting and more interesting to listen to? Anybody? Pitch in.
I suppose more effective use of dynamics just to make it more interesting to draw listeners in.
Yeah, absolutely. Dynamic plays a massive part. Exactly right. I think it's a really good answer. Excellent. Well done. Okay, and then the last one on the seniors was Tom on euphonium. Rossini. Bit of Rossini there.
Yes.
Tom, I'm getting you mixed up with Tom. There's too many Toms around.
Too many Toms is a good name.
I should say in advance, I think the version I sent of Dolts was inadvertently the one that didn't have my piano accompaniment in. So the one he was on to my piano accompaniment. So that
because I was gonna come on to the point with what do you do when you have loads of rests?
No, I'm just sitting there.
Just stand there and rest like that. It's all slightly awkward, so I didn't realise. Sorry, apologies.
No problem.
So there was a piano accompaniment, right? So that answers that question. But what do you do when you're doing this sort of stuff? If you did have a piece, you're playing a piece, but you don't have anyone to accompany, do you just stand there and rest? What do you do?
Well, most pieces I play will have accompaniment, but I suppose if you do have a rest and you don't have accompaniment, stand still and don't fidget, and contemplate, and just don't be like. Yeah.
I think you're right. I don't think it's a one answer really for that. I think try not to look so awkward. But because ultimately, if you don't forget, you have got an audience, even though it's just your phone. That essentially is your audience. I mean, Evie chose a piece for solo oboe, so that's sort of sorts that out really. It's quite useful if you do that. I mean, repertoire is key, I think, to a lot of these things. And then we had a lot of backing tracks as well, which also worked really well. It's hard, isn't it? You just got to sort of adapt in this weird environment and situation we're in at the moment. I think you've all done that and I'm always amazed at how well everyone has done by finding some or improvising with some kind of accompaniment or not, as the key case may be. But so Mr. Dawson's usually playing on that. Right, okay, so lovely Figaro's aria, wasn't it, from Barbara of Seville? Really, really lovely. It's lovely hearing this on euphonium actually, and there's some amazing euphonium arrangements of all these sort of people. Some great Mozart ones as well.
Yeah. Good.
So have you done any grade? A quick question actually for you personally. Have you done any grades of euphonium? Obviously you have you?
Yeah, I'm working towards my grade 8 currently. Because of the lockdown, there's no ABRSM grades. So no, you sounded really good. Really lovely tone. I really enjoyed your performance as well. Hopefully it came across nice on my crappy phone microphone.
It did. But just think of all those points we mentioned right at the beginning. It could have been even better. But actually, your playing itself was really good. But when you're doing this, everybody, it's the whole thing, and so many things you've got to think about. More so than just rocking up on a stage. Really, I think in front of a live audience, it's much harder to record on your phone and get your performance across to the audience and the listener. But so that was the end of the seniors, and I really enjoyed listening to you all. So thank you very much. It was an absolute privilege and an honour. So thank you. Really enjoyed all your performances, loads. We've got the juniors here as well, Mr. Dawson, have we? Yeah.
We've got the juniors here as well. I don't know if anyone has any sort of questions at this.
Yeah. Any questions? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm just talking at you all. Yeah. Sorry. Usually, if we're doing a masterclass, obviously it'd be a bit more interactive, and I'll probably ask you to get your instruments out and actually, try some different bits of your pieces. But I think that might be hard to come across like this, Mr. Dawson. Do you not think?
Yeah, I mean they've got them there, but we didn't necessarily use them. But there are a couple of really interesting things that I just sort of wanted to. Well, one I wanted to ask Jason's sort of thoughts on. The first thing I just wanted to sort of think about more generally was that, do you notice that we're sort of 31 minutes into this, and at no point has Jason mentioned being able to play all the right notes? Because that is such a base level of performing. And I think it's really easy, and I mentioned this in some of the feedback I gave to you, that this idea that it's really easy to get into the habit as a young musician to think, I can play that because I can play all the notes. The notes are such a base level. And you notice so far, Jason's talked about performance etiquette. He's talked about things to do with shaping of phrases in terms of dynamics. And my question that I'm going to come on to in a second is to do with Lois's performance. But all of these other things that maybe we don't necessarily think about when we're performing, but these are the things that make up the music. There is no one who goes away from a concert and goes, oh, didn't they play all the right notes? No, because that's a given. We don't pay 10, 15 quid to go to a concert to hear someone play the right notes. That's a given. We go because we want to be moved and we want to be taken on a journey by the performers, and we want to feel as though we, the audience, are part of it. And all of the stuff that Jason is talking about is so crucial in terms of actually communicating your piece and your performance to an audience. I think that's crucial. The one thing I wanted to ask Jason was, you mentioned in Lois's piece to do with the way that she really successfully got across the various climaxes in the music and the way she built up to the climaxes and brought them back down again. And that's something actually where singers may have a bit of more of a natural advantage for that, because the words lead them in a specific direction. Is there any way that us as party singers, I suppose, as well, but us instrumentalists can think about how we portray climaxes in music and how we show the high points and the low points within music?
Who's that? Is that to me? Sorry. Huh?
Just sort of your thoughts as an instrumentalist on how you go about.
Okay, yeah. So, well, obviously, I think Lois piece is a good one to speak about, because it's split into these different sections. Okay, so it's what I was saying. Know your piece and all the rest of it. But the main thing is, I think with a song, it's different. I think it's not different, but this one's different because you've got this introduction at the beginning here. So you've got to know the character you're actually playing at this point. And who's the character, Lois? Tell me the character's name. Who sings this song?
Fantine.
Yeah, Fantines. Yeah. So, and at this point, she's wary, isn't she? And she's doing a rambling thoughts. Yeah. So it's all this sort of stuff. It's because it's quite low as well. What do you do with this? Do you belt it out, or do we get into this character where it has to be, it's quite rambling thoughts? How do you do it? So you speak wearily, and we have a head mix, as we call it, a blend of chest and head resonance that has predominantly heady quality to it, right? But it's all this but then, you're quiet and you're sort of, and then you're using a whisper. You're using a whisper like this as an actual effect and a dynamic and as part of the shape. And then we build in. And like Mr. Dawson said, when you're singing a song, the lyrics help you do this, and the first sort of bit where it starts, you start building this controlled intensity is that line, what's the line? But the tigers come at night. Okay, that's when we start, oh, here we go, we're getting into this. We're still not feeling the full power at this point because we're still just getting into it, yeah? But you still need to start opening up and concentrating on your resonators, yeah? Okay, instead of making it more conversational as your start was, you're now building, you're opening up a little bit, you open your mouth more and you're sustaining your vowels. Okay, I'm not a singer, by the way. If I'm whittering on, this is how I would do it. And then we start to see sort of, good 2.5 minutes in before we're starting to have this sort of more of a build, shall we say, and we create the first sort of climax, and it's like a 5-note climb on what's the word, shame, is it shame, that 5-note climb, shame, yeah. And this is, this is where, more climax, we're building the intensity. How do we build it? I think main is to do with dynamic, but it's to do with the melodic shape. All right, melodic shape. It leads to being an. I talked this about before. It's a natural dynamic. You can't go anywhere else but up and louder. Okay, and you've got three climaxes each time. So you're coming down, going up, going up. How do you create? It's just pure dynamic range, and having this range of you've gone to start from a whisper, a whisper, to then fortissimo, but not just that, you're really supporting all those words and belting it out. And actually it's a passionate feel. Yeah, you're really singing full out there, and not belting, it's the wrong word, but do you know what I mean, using your full air capacity and lung capacity and full air support, especially with any of the wind instruments as well. Yeah, you've got to support everything with wind. and air support. Okay, and obviously with singing it's exactly the same. So that's what I would do.
So I mean, just as Jason sort of talked through that then, but can you see that, I mean, Jason's not even performing this piece, the level of detail that you are thinking about as a performer in terms of getting this performance across. So that's, I think the big thing there is what Jason said, is thinking about your music, not just playing it through and getting the notes across, is thinking about your performance. Where is the climax that I'm aiming to get across to the audience here? Have I even thought about that? And these are questions that if you can't answer them, have you actually sort of thought about your music enough? Have you thought about what you're trying to deliver with this, more so than just notes? Evie, you've had your hand up.
Yeah, kind of a trivial question after all of that. But I was talking to Minita about this earlier. Should we bow on a virtual performance? This is obviously in real life, but
yeah, I was going to come to that. I meant to say that at the beginning. I would say yes, 100%, absolutely 100%, because that is actually part of your performance, and you've got to treat your phone as the audience. And it's hard. It's hard. What we did in when we did Young Musician of the Year, I got our musical technician to put applause on at the end of every performance. It was I found it quite amusing every time the applause came on, because it's really abrupt like that. But if you're then bowing, it kind of makes a lot of sense. But that's all part of the performance, isn't it? And I love to bow. I've done all that work. I've done all this fantastic performance. I've put all my absolute energy and I'm sweating, and I feel like I've won, just done a 25-mile run, and I'm drained, passionately drained. So I want to be rewarded for that. So I'm going to take a huge bow for that. Thank you very much. Okay, but that's everyone then to say, oh yes, wasn't it good? Wasn't that a good performance? So it's great for everyone, and yes, it is part of your performance, 100%. And I don't know, Mr. Dawson, would you bow? I've never seen Mr. Dawson bow. Yes, I have. Yes, he always bows in the choir situations, never from the organ though.
No, very rarely from the organ.
No.
No, I always think a bow is good, and we've been doing sort of the same in sort of our lunchtime concerts and stuff with putting the applause on, and it's one of those weird things where I think at your age you can feel really self-conscious with bowing, and I think this actually links back to something Mr. Mathias said about the music stand, and it's getting away from feeling the music stand is sort of your lifeboat, and you sort of, I've played my piece to the music stand and I'm going to run away, and just no, it's getting rid of that music stand, because your job as the performer is to communicate to the audience. And once you've got into the habit of getting away from the music stand and communicating to them, it's also then about the natural sort of aspect of thanking them for thanking you. And that's what a bow is. It's taking what they're giving. And it's a two-way process, this musical performance, Lark. And it's not easy. But the only way you can get used to it is doing it. It's going to feel weird the first time. The first time any of us did a bow, it felt very fake and very unnatural. But the more you, and actually it's a two-way street, because as Jason said, the more you get involved with that performance, the more you've given, the more you've researched, the more you've given your soul in that performance, the more natural it feels because you've really earned it. If you're just playing the notes, of course a bow feels weird because what have you done? You've learned the notes. Well done. Yeah, congrats.
Yeah.
But if you've given your all, then it feels.
I always remember when I was a young person playing, and I walked off at the end of after I just done a recital, for example, and I didn't bow. And actually, the teacher or whoever it was, I can't remember who it was at the time, but they said, "How rude just to walk off without acknowledging the applause." So I think you've got to imagine that applause is happening after you've just done an amazing performance. And if you were just to go, "Oh yeah, hang up now," like this, a lot of you just go, yeah. But do that bow first, and then do that awkward, yeah, okay. I mean, what's really brilliant if you get someone to film you. That's a good thing to do, whether a parent, friend, guardian, whoever it is. It looks like a much more professional recording that way. I mean, because then you're not doing this sort of business. I don't know. That's just nothing. But I think definitely, like Mr. Thor said, it's a bit weird, but definitely bow, 100%. And as you get older, you really quite enjoy bowing. If you're sitting down, should you bow? Yes, stand up and then bow. Who's that? Yeah, definitely.
Ethan,
so, yeah. I'd say, yeah, make a point. Make a point of a bow. Bow's a big thing.
And I think the interesting thing for me is so Ethan is a guitarist and a singer, and really great. He writes his own songs and gets involved with kind of stuff. Is there any different performance etiquette for sort of pop and rock musicians in terms of bowing or something like that? Or is it I mean, I've been to gigs where the performers bow at the end of a rock and pop gig, but is there anything else that you could do? I think it's still great to acknowledge the audience. So
yeah, no, I think you've got to acknowledge the audience. Yeah. And why wouldn't you bow? Depends what the piece has been. If it's a heavy thrash metal piece, then you just kick the mic stand over and run off. But I think, generally, I think, you're all going to be judged equally. Doesn't matter about the genre. So yeah, I would say, yeah, I mean, definitely bow. Yeah, no matter what the genre is, I think it's different. It's different. It depends where you are, but for the occasion as well. This is your Young Musician of the Year final. It's a big occasion. Yeah, you've done very well to get, I'm sure, to get where you've got, and for to make the final. So yeah, I mean, if you were in a club, you might not want to do that, but you're not. It's a big occasion, so you need to bow, definitely. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any? As I say, Mr. Mathias is here once for this useful workshop. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Not really a question from me, but just sort of an out of interest thing. I heard you played in the Hong Kong handover ceremony. I've seen the videos from that. I've seen the video broadcasts. One of the most powerful, the most emotional things I've ever seen. It's fantastic. And I just want to ask, what was that like? Especially when they played Highland Cathedral. And I had the governor in tears.
Yeah, gosh.
Yeah.
Right, good. Yeah, well, we did. And actually so we're on the parade square to start with before we went into the conference centre to actually do the actual handover with Chris Patton. So we're outside on the square. And I don't know if you saw it, but it sounds like you did. It was torrential rain, absolute torrential rain. Never seen rain like it, ever. We were all out there with our instruments and our tunics on, and we had bear skins as well. Drum majors had all gold sort of wear on, as it were. And essentially all that was ruined, all ruined. But what actually happened from that parade ground, half the band got on a barge straight onto the river, and the other half went into the conference centre, the exhibition centre, and did the actual playing as Chris Patton was doing the signing over and handing over. And then we played in there. And what was interesting, no one knew what the Chinese were going to do. So all the Chinese troops were literally just outside Hong Kong, all on their troop trucks, and no one knew what was going to happen. And essentially what did happen, the band, after we did the handover, Chris Patton was out of there, and then the rest of the band, we got back on the barge that was directly on the parade square, and it was Old Hong Kong Airport at the time. So this river, we got on the barge, and then the barge got going, and it was going upriver towards the runway of Hong Kong Airport. All up the riverbanks were the SAS on their, or the SBS actually, on their boats with guns. You could see them. They didn't know what was going to happen, so giving us this escort out of there. We were still in full uniforms. All our stuff was on the barge, and basically this barge pulled up to the end of the runway. We all jumped out onto the runway, just threw all our stuff onto the plane. It was a BA plane, actually. It was the last plane out of there, but it was just there on the runway. And we just chucked everything on, all our wet tunics, bearskins, instruments ruined, essentially. All the sax players had Mark 6s, some Mark 6s were lovely instruments, but just written off. All the tunics written off because all the red had bled into the white. The drum major's gold uniform written off. Bearskins almost written off, some were saved, but they're about £4,000 ago. And anyway, so all just jumped on this plane and then flew out of there. Oh, didn't realise. Yes, good. Right, well, thank you, everyone. Absolutely wonderful to meet you all, and good luck with it all. I mean, there's some amazing performances, and I really did enjoy listening to them all. And it's been lovely to meet you. So I hope that's been of some use. It'd be much better if it was in real life, obviously. But thank you. Yeah, brilliant.
No, honestly, Jason, thank you so much. Absolutely brilliant. Really, really useful. And I hope that's been of use to you all. But other than that, really good luck. And I hope it goes well. Looking forward to hearing your performances in the final. Thanks, folks.
Yeah,
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Nice.